This is the dynasty that reigned the longest in Chinese history. Legend has it that before the Zhou dynasty was established, King Wen of Zhou, Jiang, once acted as a carriage driver for Jiang Ziya. Thus came the legend. King Wen pulls the cart for 800 paces, the Zhou dynasty rules for 800 years. So, why exactly was the Zhou dynasty able to last for as long as 800 years? During these nearly 800 years, what actually happened? Today let's understand the history of the Zhou dynasty in one go. To thoroughly understand the Zhou dynasty, first we must understand a concept. In history, for a period to be called a dynasty, it means it was the only legitimate regime on Chinese soil at that time. Even when various feudal lords in the spring and autumn and warring states periods turned the world upside down, the declining son of heaven of Zhou was still the only common ruler of the world. Therefore, history divides the Zhou dynasty into Western Zhou and Eastern Zhou. The watershed moment is the familiar story of King Wen of Zhou fooling the feudal lords with beacon fires. And the history of Eastern Zhou can be further divided into the spring and autumn period and the warring states period before Qin destroyed Zhou. To understand the stories within, we have to start from the beginning. From 1046 BC, when King Wen of Zhou won with fewer numbers at the Battle of Muye, defeating King Zhou of Shang to establish the Zhou dynasty, until 256 BC when King Nan of Zhou died of illness, and Zhou was destroyed by Qin. The Zhou dynasty passed through 32 generations of monarchs, with a total of 37 kings, reigning for a total of 790 years. At the very beginning of the Zhou dynasty, the developed scope of the world was merely the central plains area along the Yellow River. Thus King Wen of Zhou used a mere decree to enfeoff feudal lords all over the world, making them willing to develop those barbaric lands for him. It seemed like immense imperial grace, but in reality, it was comparable to the world's greatest scheme. You think that after this, the Zhou dynasty could just develop smoothly. In fact, after King Wen of Zhou established the country, he kicked the bucket just 3 years later. In 1043 BC, the young King Cheng of Zhou succeeded to the throne. Because King Cheng of Zhou was still a little kid at the time, King Wu's brother, Duke of Zhou, Jidan, had to govern. But this aroused strong dissatisfaction from King Wu's other 3 brothers, Guanshu, Kaishu, and Huoshu. Originally, these 3 were sent by King Wen to watch over King Zhou of Shang's son, Wu Geng. Unexpectedly, they ended up joining forces with Wu Geng and several small eastern states to start the rebellion of the 3 guards, shaking the foundations of the Zhou dynasty. In 1042 BC, to consolidate Zhou rule, the Duke of Zhou personally led a large army on an eastern expedition. Following King Wu's route to attack Zhou, he took Zhage straight away, killed Wu Geng, executed Guanshu, exiled Kaishu, and demoted Huoshu to a commoner. Afterward, he continued marching southeast, adopting a tactic of attacking the weak before the strong, conquering the 9 Yi in 17 states. He moved all the Yin people to Luoyi. It took 3 years to quell the rebellion of the 3 guards. History calls this the Duke of Zhou's Eastern Expedition. By 1039 BC, in order to better control the east, the Zhou dynasty built the eastern capital, Luoyi, in Henan territory, as the Zhou dynasty's ruling center in the east. East of the river was for Yin immigrants to live, guarded by the 8 armies of Yin. West of the river was the royal city, serving as a meeting place for feudal lords. In 1021 BC, King Kang of Zhou succeeded to the throne, continuing the national policy of his father, King Cheng. Politically, he relieved the poor, granted land to the people, praised virtue, and was cautious with punishment. This led to political stability in Western Zhou during the reigns of Cheng and Kang. The people were harmonious, foreign tribes from all directions came to pay tribute, and the world was peaceful. Punishments were not used for over 40 years. History calls this the rule of Cheng and Kang. Starting from 980 BC, King Zhao of Zhou, with feudal lords as the vanguard, personally led a large army, crossed the Han River, crossed the Yangtze River, and launched 3 southern expeditions against Hufang, Jingchu, and other places. The army marched triumphantly via Tang, straight to the Jianghan region, gaining a bountiful harvest. The Zhao army not only won battles, but also seized a large amount of bronze spoils. But during the return trip after King Zhao's 3rd southern victory, because they carried too much loot, the floating bridge couldn't bear the weight, and suddenly collapsed. King Zhao of Zhou drowned in the chaos. Later generations referred to this as King Zhao went south, and never returned. In 977 BC, King Mu of Zhou, the #1 Western traveler, succeeded to the throne. His fame might not even catch up to his ride, which is the famous 8 steeds of King Mu. After King Mu of Zhou took office, he issued the Zhou Command, reiterating governance norms to court officials, and enacting the punishment of Lu, defining 5 heavy punishments. He worked hard to govern, and the world was peaceful again. maintaining the prosperity of King Zhao's era. In 964 BC, King Mu of Zhou went on a western expedition, advancing to Yangyu. The Zhou army won a great victory. Due to King Mu's high-pressure policy towards ethnic minorities on the border, the Zhou dynasty lost prestige among the surrounding foreign tribes. After 2 expeditions against the Quanrong, King Mu continued his western crusade. The army marched to the hills of Kunlun. This is the earliest recorded cultural exchange between the Central Plains and the western regions in Chinese history, but King Mu, who loved touring, also consumed a huge amount of the country's wealth. By the time King Gong of Zhou succeeded in 922 BC, the national treasury had become unusually empty. The economy was hard to maintain. Debts could only be paid by the son. King Gong, who cared about his reputation, in order to maintain the face of the common ruler of the world, had to successively distribute the land near the capital to feudal lords and officials. This made the territory directly controlled by the Zhou dynasty smaller and smaller. The Zhou dynasty's national power also began to decline. In 900 BC, King Yi of Zhou succeeded to the throne. Western Zhou politics became increasingly corrupt. The Shirong began to invade Zhou borders, once even reaching Haojing. The Xiren in the north eyed Qi and Zhou covetously. The people suffered greatly. King Yi once sent troops north to attack the Quanrong, but returned in defeat. He died of worry and fear after 8 years on the throne. After King Yi died, something happened that was enough to change the course of Chinese history. King Yi's uncle, Fang, took the opportunity to seize the crown prince's throne, and was determined to revive the Zhou dynasty. History calls him King Shao of Zhou. So, King Shao opened a pasture on the grassland between the Wei rivers. He used heavy gold to recruit a man named Feizi to train war horses for him. Feizi raised the horses very well, so he was granted dozens of li of land in Qin. This was the birthplace of the future Qin state. But King Shao of Zhou died of illness before realizing his ideal of revitalizing the Zhou clan. It wasn't until the reign of the 9th monarch, King Yi of Zhou, that the Zhou dynasty barely won a battle. King Yi sent the 6 armies to wipe out the Taiwan Rong, fighting all the way to Yukon for a complete victory, capturing 1,000 war horses. History calls this King Yi attacks Rong. But aside from being good at fighting, his brain wasn't very sharp. Listening to the slander of the Duke of Zhou, he boiled Duke I of Qi to death. By 878 BC, when King Li of Zhou was on the throne, the Zhou royal family became even more absurd. To maintain royal expenses, King Li levied heavy taxes. Not only did he increase exploitation of the working people, he also monopolized social wealth and resources. All the trees, water and air are mine. If you use them, you pay tax. Whoever pays me more money gets to be a high official. Unsurprisingly, this quickly led to the Compatriots Rebellion. King Li had to flee Haojing, cross the Yellow River, and escape to Ji, on the Zhou border. The court turned into the Gongga Regency. 14 years later, King Li died in Ji. By 827 BC, when the 11th monarch of Western Zhou, King Xuan of Zhou, Jing, succeeded. Politically, he appointed capable ministers to assist in governance. Militarily, he used the power of feudal lords to launch military operations multiple times, once bringing the Zhou dynasty to a state where the 4 directions were peaceful and the kingdom was stable. History calls this the Xuanwang Restoration. But years of war also consumed a lot of national strength. Plus, in his later years, King Xuan was arbitrary and ignored loyal advice, making the Xuanwang Restoration ultimately short-lived. The Zhou dynasty still couldn't escape decline. In 782 BC, the last king of Western Zhou, King Yu of Zhou, succeeded. King Yu doted on his mistress Bao Si, abolished the crown prince and the queen, and even demoted his father-in-law, the Marquis of Shen. How could the queen's family swallow this insult? So the Marquis of Shen allied with the Quanrong to settle the score with King Yu together. This led to the outbreak of the Battle of Haojing. But because King Yu had once fooled the feudal lords with beacon fires just to make the beauty Bao Si smile, when the Quanrong invaded, no one came to save the king. The allied forces of Quanrong and Shen drove straight in, reaching Haojing. The Western Zhou's 6 armies, totaling 75,000 men, were crushed by the Quanrong and Shen alliance, completely wiped out. King Yu of Zhou was also killed at the foot of Lishan. The feudal lords had to support the former crown prince Ji Yizhu to succeed, known as King Ping of Zhou, establishing the Eastern Zhou. If you like this, please click to follow. Next time, I'll take you to understand the whole spring and autumn period.